Okay, there we are. Excuse me for that. Sorry. It is my intention to shorten the time in which I posted I'm going to go live and actually going live. So I don't want to keep anybody waiting. So we're going to talk about John Drake's Fletcher's Fletcher's Fortune, and I'm going to struggle a little bit with speaking because of my recovery from tongue cancer. Usually it clears up, and I never really know how bad it's going to be until I start talking. But usually it clears up as I start talking. But the inside of my mouth is a little swollen. So we'll talk about that, and I also want to talk a little bit about a couple things that I think that this review and reading this book that are interesting to me as a writer and a reader. And one is there's a marketing conundrum when it comes to discounting either books or doing a whole box set for a discount. And I also have some remarks about changing your name as an author. Using a pen name, I think is one thing, but changing your name in the middle of a series is something else. So we'll talk about that as well. So let's get this show started. Who am I? Um, my name is Cody Singdahl. I'm the author. I'm the author of um, six novels. I just had one out back in April, the French Fiasco, and I am on the path of myself. I don't uh, claim to be an expert in anything, but I'm certainly someone who has some experience, and I like to share that with you, my viewers, whether you're a reader or writer or something else. You're all welcomed here. So let's get to it. So I will start off by saying that I uh, I like reading historical fiction, especially historical military fiction or any kind of action adventure that takes place in the past sometime. And the closer, I'm kind of a stickler for historical accuracy. So I like not only a fun tale, but I like to have some kind of accuracy. So that really takes me to the time, and maybe I might learn something along the way in reading it. And I pick up a lot of books for 99 cents when I see them. Uh, just it's a great deal, and it's a great way to sample an author. I certainly uh, offer 99-cent deals. In fact, right now, the Mexico I love in the United States is 99 cents until this coming Saturday, which is June 7th, 2025, if you're watching this sometime in the future. So it's a great way to invite people in. And so, anyway, I found this novel was part of a 7 novel box set. The whole set was 99 cents. And we'll get into my feeling about that. But I will just say at the time, I was like, sure, novels, 99 cents. It's Age of Sail. I think the first book starts somewhere around maybe 1792, 1793. So I was all in. Of course, and then I threw it into my long list of my long queue of books I'm going to read. And it finally came up. And I will say I decided, well, I'm not going to read all 7 books in a row. That's a little much. But I said I'll read at least one. And if I like it, I'll intersperse the other 6 with other novels that are on my list. So I can still kind of work down my list while taking this in. And anyway, I really enjoyed it. I part of part of the reason I was interested in this is I'm going to write my own nautical adventure novel coming up soon, Black James. My novel is going to take place later on. It's not going to be Age of Sail. It's going to be the early age of steam. So my novel is going to take place in 1820s, 1830s. So a little different time than 1790s. But one of the reasons why, of course, this doesn't take the place of real research, but I feel like if you're going to write in a particular niche genre like nautical adventures, it's good to read as many novels as you can in it to kind of give you a feel for well what the age was like. I mean, just to give you more and more texture and hear the words that they're using and the the parts of the boats and how the battles play out and the characters and the tropes and all that kind of stuff. Of course, I will be doing more intensive research when I get to start writing my novel, Black James. But it's good to just have kind of a background in it before I start writing. So I mean, I've read many novels that take place in the American Civil War before I wrote my first one. Of course, I still had to do a lot of research, a lot of very specific research, like how did certain guns work, how did who was where during a battle and what about the different regiments and units and the uniforms and all the little minutia that you could possibly know. So I I will say I wasn't quite sure, and we'll get into this more. I wasn't quite sure if it was going to be if it's 7 books for $1, are they any good? And but they are very well. Not only is the set, but the individual novels are very well reviewed. I mean, they have thousands. Ratings are that 4+ ratings are star ratings are in the thousands. So it can't be bad. Um, and so I read the first one, Fletcher's Fortune, and I loved it, man. I'll tell you this. I read it. I don't. I guess I'm becoming a faster reader. It seems like I'm beginning to read around. The last few books I've read were like in 10 days, 9 days, 8 days. This last one I read in 6 days. So I don't know how long it was, but it didn't feel any shorter than the novels I've been reading. But yeah, so that's why we're doing this now. Because last week I think I said I wasn't quite sure what I would do this week, and I didn't think I'd be done with that book. Now there's no promises I'm going to be doing a review of the book I'm reading now next week, but we'll see how I do. I am reading faster. I guess if you do something enough, you get better at it. And I started reading novels. I mean, I've been reading novels since the second grade. Is when the first time I've ever read a novel, which is the Curse of the Whispering Mummy. I've been reading novels all my life since the second grade, but I've been reading them more regularly ever since I started writing, and maybe even a little bit before. But when I decided to become a writer, I decided that I needed to always be reading a novel, to always be reading other people, both the classics and my contemporary, both within my genre and outside my genre, both good and bad. I've heard a lot of people say this, and I agree. You can learn a lot from reading a bad novel. And that's true. I won't mention any of the novels I consider bad, but I'll just say this: none of the novels that I consider bad that I've read have I reviewed. If it's a bad novel, I just don't review it. I'm not going to tear anybody down. I'm not going to give anybody, frankly, anything less than a 5-star review. If it's good and it's good enough for me to review, and I enjoyed it, 5 stars. Everybody else can, split lines, split hairs, and decide why something's 4 or 3. And I'm certainly not going to give anybody a 1 or 2 because I think that just hurts their overall score. And it's not my place to do that. I think a pure consumer, I think that's fine. And go ahead and be honest and give. Certainly I've gotten 5-star reviews from complete strangers, and I've gotten, I don't think I've ever had a review that was lower than 3 stars, but I've had negative. Maybe I've had a 2. I've had some people give me 2-star ratings or 1-star rating, but I don't believe any of those ever came with a review. I've had people give me 3-star reviews that were positive, and I've gotten 3-star reviews that were negative. Maybe I did get one that was 2 stars. But anyway, all my books are overall 4 stars or above. All right, let's get to it. I'm wasting time here. All right, here's my review. Yeah, okay, good. Once again, this review has been shared on Amazon and Goodreads, and then I put it on my own blog spot, and that's what I used to share. All right, review of Fletcher's Fortune by John Drake. Fletcher, excuse me. Let me take a drink of water before I get started. All right, Fletcher's Fortune has a. Sorry, let me start again. Fletcher's Fortune has a fascinating premise, which I could not wait to see how it would play out. It's as much of a mystery as it is an action adventure story. And it starts with an introduction in which the author claims to have won in an auction the memoirs of the notorious Jacob Fletcher, the main character of the series. He then claims that he used these plus boxes full of letters, articles, and other things to flesh out the novels in the series. I'm pretty sure this setup is also part of the fiction. The story runs in two tracks. Fletcher's account of his Fletcher's account in his own words, and the story of a seemingly unconnected aristocratic family written in third person, assumedly from the boxes and of letters and articles. The story starts with an angry father in a drunken rage, threatening to exclude his wife and two boys from the family fortune. Then there's a type right there. Then there's Fletcher's story, a street smart orphan picked up by a press gang and forced into the Royal Navy at the onset of the French Revolutionary Wars. The mystery lies in how these two stories are related. At some point, Fletcher not only has to worry about the French, but an unknown enemy aboard a ship, who the reader can try to guess from the clues. The narrative voice of Fletcher is fantastic. It is fantastic for the time, place, and class. More than any other writer, I can hear the salty maritime English accent in every word. The author also gives in story notes as if adding context to Fletcher's word from the 21st century, thus playing up the found memoir trope. The book was a lot of fun. So often I read authors who really want to tell you how awful everything was. I've always felt that being pressed into the Royal Navy was akin to going to prison or being sold into slavery. Certainly, the main character despairs at his fate, but there's a lot of joy as well as he makes friends and grows into a seaman and eventually takes pleasure and excitement in it. There's a fine line balance between maintaining historical realism and creating escapist entertainment. Author John Drake walks it expertly. He also has a profound understanding of the ship's technology, history, and culture of the age of sail, but never gets so lost in the details that it goes over the head of a neophyte like me. I really enjoyed Fletcher's Fortune. I bought the box set of the first seven novels of the series. I'm looking forward to reading through it. Drake has recently put out an eighth Fletcher novel and is planning two more at the time of writing. So, if you want a long series of historical adventure on the high seas, Fletcher's Fortune is a good place to start. And then, of course, as always, there is a preview that you can look at, an embedded preview of the novel. So if you want to look at it, and you can buy it uh, right off my blog spot. I don't get any commission for it or anything like that. It's just a courtesy to the author and to the reader. And then there's always, well, last week I forgot to put it on. In fact, and then I said I would put it on, and I forgot to until today. So I added the preview to my novel as well. So that's my review. Sorry for the bad reading. I'm fighting my own mouth. I thought I got done with chemotherapy and radiation in March. and I'm still recovering. And I told my nurse, I had an appointment yesterday. That's frustrating because I feel like I'm still like I have to defend to people, defend myself to people who are like, why are you, why do you still have, why aren't you recovered yet? And, I thought you'd be okay by now. And it's just, she told me it takes about a year and I'm slowly getting to the point where I can eat again. I still can't fully eat, but I'm, there. And just so you know, I went from completely could not take anything through the mouth, um, and ate through a feeding tube. Even I couldn't even drink water. I had to do everything from a feeding tube. Uh, uh, to now, I can eat soup as long as it's not too chunky, and yogurt, and I'm working on eating some solids as well. So enough of that. So here's a couple things that are interesting. First of all, actually, let me take that down. I just want to have it ready for later on. One thing I think is interesting, and these are more my musing than it is, I'm not saying anything that's definitive because I don't know. But I think there is something to be said about price marketing. And um, I've heard a lot that you want to price your novels to kind of match the market, and that um, there is a problem with pricing things too low, because sometimes when people see something that is priced under value, they think it doesn't have value. My sister, she used to make crochet bikinis, and she would sell them for a lot of money, like $100 for a top and bottom, maybe even more. And I said to her and my mom, well, why don't you sell them for cheaper? And they said that people don't value it. So if they see that it's a low price, they don't think it's any good, so they don't buy it. So they actually make higher sales by pricing it, which is a really interesting phenomenon. And I think that's true for books as well. And in fact, most people say now that do not give your books away for free. And I agree with that because I have several books that I got for free that aren't even on my queue to read, because I don't value it. But if I spend $1, then I'm probably going to read it. And there's something psychological about it. I mean, what is $1? I mean, eventually enough dollars is a lot, but you're willing to waste $1. But even with that, if I buy a novel for $1, I'm gonna feel compelled to read it, and I'm a completionist too. So even if I'm not enjoying something, I'm probably gonna finish it. Uh, so I think there's some danger to that. I do discount my books to $1. I feel like sometimes that is a good way of bringing people in. Certainly, the first book of a series. Sometimes I find that discounting one of the interior books for $1 will prompt some people to buy the whole series. They'll see that book 2 or 3 is only 99 cents. And then they'll say, well, screw it, I'll just buy the whole series. And they buy that one book for 99 cents and they buy the whole rest. So I think it can go both ways. In this case, this was 7 novels, and they weren't written that long ago. I think the first one came out. I think Fletcher's Portrait maybe come out 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. And so these aren't like really old. I mean, they're over 10 years maybe for the first one. And I will say this, that it was only $1, and I was hesitant to buy it. I was, because I was like, first of all, I hadn't heard of John Drake. That's no fault of his. There's a lot of people that are famous authors that I don't know their names. I'm not familiar with everybody, but I didn't know who he was. And so I didn't know if it was any good. So and there was a little bit in my mind of like, well, if he's selling 7 novels for 99 cents, how could they be? And the second part of it was, do I want to commit, knowing that I have this compulsion that if I even pay $1 for it, I'm going to try to read it. Do I really want to commit to 7 novels of this guy that I don't know? And I think that won me over was that I was thinking in advance that eventually I'm going to be writing Black James, and knowing that it's good to read novels within, close to the subgenre that I'd be writing, which I'll be writing, which is a nautical adventures, even though the age is a little off. It'll take place about 30 years before my novel takes place. But still, I think the great thing about history is reading about the era itself is important, but it's also good to read about anything that happened before and anything that happened afterwards, because it paints a better understanding of the era that you're writing in. So if I'm writing in the 1830s, they may be using different kinds of ships than they did in the 1790s. But the 1830s is an era that certainly has a memory of the 1790s. And there's certainly some holdovers from there. And this 1830s didn't come out of a vacuum. They were an evolution of what was going on in 1790. And then conversely, reading a book that takes place in the 1870s, well, that 1870s has evolved from where you're writing in the 1830s. So it's good to read around the era. I think that there's no, all history is good, and all of it is helpful in one way or the other to get some backstory. Or, I mean, I think reading Roman novels probably aren't going to help me write a book about 1830s nautical adventures and warfare, but you know what I mean. So that was what won me over to it, that this would be a good warm up to writing Black James. So I and the one thing is, I told myself I'll read at least one of it, and if I don't like it, I won't make myself read the rest. Well, book one has won me over. I'm going to read the rest, but I think it's really an interesting thing, though, is that I've noticed that the set has done really well. I think it's currently selling for, I think the price has gone up. I think he's selling the set for like $5 or something. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick to see. Guys, it's very slow. Okay, I won't even try that. Well, let's see here. It's very slow. It does not like multitasking. In fact, this my computer crashed when I tried to start my live stream here. Yeah, it does not like multitasking. My computer is kind of old, and it is getting close to its last leg here. All right. Here, I'll share this with you. If will even let me click over to this window. Yeah, everything's freezing up my. All right, let's see. Stop screen. Start. Here we go. Okay, so this is what I had bought. Let's see if it's showing up on your end. Yeah, there we go. Great. This is what I bought this for $1, and he's now selling it for $2.99. So it's now $3 for 7 of these. So you can jump on this right now. It's a great deal. And but here's what's important to know about it. There you go. There's a better look, and you can see all 7 titles in there. And I'm going to read all of them unless it suddenly gets really bad. But I know it doesn't, because he's written 8, and he's already saying that he's going to write. I think book 9 comes out this year, and he's planning on book 10 coming out or the following year, I think. But even right now, the box set is ranked at 48,000 in the Kindle store. That's really good. I mean, anything under 100,000 is good. And yeah, 2,700 ratings, and it's sitting at a 4.6. That's fantastic. And then I don't know how many actual reviews there are, but there's tons of them. So, so it is selling, and people are liking it. So who knows? Maybe this is a good philosophy, and maybe what he did was when he was coming out with book 8. Maybe he thought, okay, I'm putting out book 8, and it might be hard to sell a book 8 if I don't have enough people in the funnel reading the first 7. And that's kind of a big ask to say, hey, to a new reader, I got this new book out, but you might want to go back and read these other 7 books. But if selling the first book is important, then to me, then why don't I just offer all the other ones for $1 to get people to read it so that they read book 8? There might be a philosophy to that makes sense. I don't see myself doing that. I thought about the other day that my books have kind of a weird. My series has kind of a weird left turn in that it's a Civil War trilogy, and Civil War kind of by itself is a subgenre in the historical military genre. And then there's a prequel that's Mexican American War. And then there's two books after that that are about the wars of German unification. And I've always said this is that the Civil War fans are kind of a silo in which they read predominantly Civil War stuff and may not be interested in all the other stuff that's in the series. And conversely, a lot of military history novel fans aren't necessarily interested in Civil War, but might be in the other things that my books are about. So it's kind of a fractured series that way. And I thought about maybe someday offering the first 3 books as a box set. We'll see. I don't know if I want to do it for $1, but maybe I might someday do it. All 3 books for like $9.99. I don't know. That's a long time for me. So I thought that was kind of an interesting case study in marketing and pricing and things like that. And I have another box set I bought for $99. It's Serena Dory's The Wombly Witch School. It's kind of like a Harry Potter knockoff. I mean, knockoff's a bad word, but kind of like along the lines, just like the Fletcher books are a knockoff of the Jack Aubrey books or the Horatio Hornblower books. That's what Serena Dory's books are like. It's like if you like Harry Potter and you want more of that, she's got a series about School for Witches, and I think it's mostly a girls book. Like I don't know if there are boys at the school or not. Where Harry Potter had girls in it, but Harry Potter was a boy. But I think it's young adult. I bought it for $1. And the reason why is because I don't know where I got to know Serena Dory. She might have followed me on Twitter or Instagram, and I followed her back, and then I just really liked her marketing and was interested by it. And like I said, reading outside your genre. So when she offered her first 5 books of this series for $1, I was like, yeah, I'll do that, and they'll probably be fun. I read the first Harry Potter. I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it. I didn't care enough to read past the first book, and I watched the first movie as well. And because I'd read the book, I thought, okay, I'll watch the movie. And I know it's good, and I know everybody loves it. I think for me, had I been exposed to Harry Potter when I was like a kid, I'm a Gen Xer, so I was well into my adulthood when it came out. So I didn't really have a lot of interest in it. But if I had read that book when I was 12 or saw the movies, I'd probably be crazy. In fact, I'm crazy about it. In fact, I've heard somebody say, and I think it is really, really good. They said that uh, whereas Star Wars, especially original Star Wars, was a very Gen X thing, Harry Potter is very much a millennial thing. Millennials are the big, adults Harry Potter fans. We might talk about that someday because I think it's really interesting that they're remaking it, um, and and how that stacks up against an already successful film franchise. Um, and it seems like they just made it. Time just, but it's been like I think over 10 years since the last movie came out, and in that time, the children that enjoyed it are adults now, having children themselves. So new lease on life. So the other thing I want to touch on, and is uh, is this. So I don't know much about John Drake, but the one thing I found out in um, well, I see. I want to switch. Okay, so we're gonna stop screen here. And then I'm gonna present share screen. Okay, there we go. Here's another thing I think is interesting about. I know he's British, and I think he's older than I am. But that's about as much as I can tell you. Uh, I when w- when okay, I bought the set, and I'm tracking my reading on Goodreads, and when you buy a box set for Kindle, it comes as it's kind of delivered to your Kindle as just one big book. It's just one huge book, um, and so it kind of throws you off about page numbers and percentage of where you are. And I wanted to review the novels individually, so not only am I tracking that I'm reading the box set, but I also wanted to track the individual books. So I went and found the book, and I found that um, I think they changed this as I started reading. Some of the versions of the book were under a different name, J.C. Edwards, and apparently, I think the first two books in the series, the author is J.C. Edwards, and then it changed to John Drake. And I thought maybe what was going on is that the author had come up with um, a pen name and changed it because John Drake sounds very much like a pen name to me, or a male stripper. But then I just read this today, and it says, see now I've lost it. Okay, about the author. J.C. Edwards is the pen name of John Drake, author of the Fletcher series. So I think the opposite of what I thought happened. I think what happened is that John started using a pen name, got two books into this, and then said, "Why am I giving credit to someone else when and decided to use his own name?" I think that's what's going on. I've heard of authors using pen names. I know some people who do. One of the arguments I've heard for it that kind of makes sense is that if you're writing in multiple genres that are very different, that it might be confusing to your readers. So, like if you write exclusively horror, or no, if you write horror under your name, but you're also writing children's books, like Stephen King. I don't think he had a pen name for a while, Richard Bachman. But Stephen King writing children's book, well, I think that would sell. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it might be confusing, or the other way around. If someone knows you as a children's author, and then you throw out a horrifying, really scary horror novel, you might get some bad reviews, or people are confused because they might, be interested in buying everything you do because they like what you do in one genre, and then all of a sudden you throw a book at them in a different genre, and I don't know. That's kind of the argument I've heard. I kind of, I was, I'm lucky to have a unique name, and there are no other authors in which I share it with. There's a Sylvia Engdahl, and there's a William Engdahl, and that's just my last name. And of my last name, there's only two authors of note that have my last name that I'm aware of. But and whereas there are at least two other Cody Engdahls out there that I know of, I'm the only Cody Engdahl that is writing novels in any genre. So I cornered the market on my name. I don't share it with anybody. Um, I can understand the frustration that some people have, and want a name that sticks out. So I'm lucky in that. And to me, it would not be worth it to write. Well, I had considered. I started writing some erotica, and I put that away for a while. But that if I ever put that out, that will be under a pen name because it'll be kind of embarrassing. That I don't want people to. I won't be, and people ask me, it'll be okay, but overall, I don't want. I want to separate that from everything else I do, and for the most part, I don't really see me crossing genres. I've had a couple ideas for science fiction, but I don't see myself getting to science fiction or horror. I wrote horror when, just like everybody else did, back when I was a gothic teenager and a young adult. That I never published any of it. Um, I'm interested in it. I'm interested in science fiction and fantasy, but I don't see myself ever writing it now. I have plenty to work on in historical, military, and action adventure fiction, which I will be writing for the rest of my life. All right, somebody wants to talk to me on a Zoom. Oh, Philip, yeah. So I'll this is a good place to end it anyway. I'm rambling at this point. So anyway, I really liked Fletcher's Fortune. I buy the box set for $2.99 because from the looks of it, from everybody else, um, it will. I can vouch for it. The first book was fabulous, and I read it in record time, 6 days, and that means other than I try to make myself read at least 20 minutes a day, and I was reading far more than that. And this is the third novel that I've finished overnight. By the way, I've had a really good run with novels that I've really enjoyed that I couldn't put that in the middle of the night. I call it like the water slide, where reading a novel was like getting in line, getting on the ladder, climbing up to the ladder, and the last like 30% of the book is where you get on, where you finally you've made it all that way, and now it's a water slide going down. So I kind of got to that point, the big marquee battle and what happened afterwards. And I mean, a lot of it had to do with insomnia, because sometimes what happens is it's not that I have trouble falling asleep, it's that I wake up in the middle of the night and then struggle to go back to sleep. And some of the best way for me to do it is to read, because it calms my mind down, because sometimes my mind races and it's trying to process things that it doesn't need to process. And so to give it something to work on, like reading, kind of calms those voices. And one of the best things I ever did, I mean, I was, just so you know, I was a guy who said, I will never read a book on Kindle. I only want a paper book. Then I got a Kindle and I said, never will read on my phone. Now I read almost exclusively on my phone. And the biggest reason why is that oh, that's not what I'll show you. So this is what it looks like during the day. Okay. It, you can kind of see it's like a light color with black letters, and it's easy on the eye, and it scrolls. But then at night, it turns a black background with very dim white letters, so you can read in a complete darkness without ruining your night vision or having too much light in your eyes to wake you up. And it's perfect. So when Laura stays with me, I can read while she's sleeping, or when I'm by myself, I can read without turning the lights on and thus waking myself up completely. And sometimes I only need to read like a page or two and I'm ready to go back to bed. Sometimes, like last night, I read multiple chapters. So anyway, I'll leave it there. I love you. Keep reading, keep writing. If there's an author out there who you like, um, give them some stars. That's number one. And the rating really helps. 5 stars if you can, but give them however many that you think is fair. And then second to that, after that, you can stop there. But if you want to go a step further, write a few couple lines. It doesn't have to be something as long as mine. And just say why you liked or didn't like the book. It could be like, I really liked it, couldn't put it down. Bam, you're done. Or write as much as you want. I think for me as an author, it's a really good exercise of not only reading, but holding myself accountable to writing a report about it. All right, you guys, I love you. We'll talk next week. I may be doing another book review. I'm reading Stephen A. McKay's, you have to say it right, Sworn to God. It's a short novel. It might be a novella. I think it was the print version is only 237 pages. We'll see. I read the prologue last night. We'll see how quickly I read it. Otherwise, we'll come up with something. Try to do this every week. So talk to you next week.